The quantum welder sparked against Kithaeron biometal, sending cascades of blue-white light across Jace Torin's workshop. He squinted through his magnification visor, watching molecular bonds reform at the subatomic level. 3 years of working aboard the Meridian's edge had taught him that alien tech required patience, precision, and a healthy sense of humor about the universe's tendency toward chaos. "Come on, you stubborn piece of," the welder died in his hand. Again, Jace sighed and reached for the backup unit. "Third one today. At this rate, I'll be fixing welders instead of exosuits." The workshop hummed around him, filled with the gentle thrum of quantum processors and the occasional ping of diagnostic equipment. Holographic displays floated at eye level, showing molecular structures, power flow diagrams, and repair schedules that seemed to grow longer by the hour. Outside his reinforced viewport, the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly, dotted with the running lights of both human and Kithaeron vessels maintaining their careful dance of ceasefire. His comm unit chimed. "Torin here." "Jace, you've got a priority repair coming down, diplomatic level." The voice belonged to Chief Mendez, whose tone suggested this wasn't a routine armor patch. "How diplomatic are we talking?" "Like, please don't start another war, diplomatic, or oops, I accidentally caused a galactic incident, diplomatic. The kind where you smile, nod, and pretend you don't notice if they have more limbs than usual." Tuesday." The door to his workshop hissed open 20 minutes later, and Jace looked up from his calibration bench to see a figure in ceremonial Kithaeron armor stepping through. His first thought was practical. The exosuit's power matrix was definitely compromised, judging by the way the quantum field generators flickered around the torso section. His second thought was considerably less professional. Ambassador Lyrale Voss moved with the fluid grace of someone equally comfortable in diplomatic chambers and combat zones. Her armor, a masterpiece of Kithaeron bioengineering, seemed to flow rather than clank as she walked. The distinctive pointed ears that marked her species were barely visible beneath her helmet's edge, but there was something in her bearing that suggested both warrior's strength and diplomat's careful control. "Master Torin." Her voice carried the melodic accent of the Kithaeron core worlds. "I believe my armor has developed what your people might call trust issues." Jace grinned despite himself. "Trust issues? It no longer trusts me to keep it functional, and I no longer trust it to keep me alive during tomorrow's negotiations." She gestured to a section of her breastplate where warning lights blinked in agitated patterns. "The biointegration matrix keeps trying to reject my neural patterns. Most inconvenient timing. Let me guess. Someone, accidentally, introduced a compatibility virus into your suit systems." Her smile was sharp enough to cut through hull plating. "What a remarkably specific guess. I've seen this type of sabotage before. Usually shows up right before important votes or peace talks. Funny how that works." Jace gestured to the diagnostic platform in the center of his workshop. "If you'll step over there, I can run a full system scan. Fair warning, the biointegration repair requires direct neural interface contact. Nothing inappropriate, just some calibration work on the connection points. I trust you know your craft, Master Torin." The diagnostic platform hummed to life as Lyrale stepped onto it, her armor automatically interfacing with Jace's systems. Holographic displays erupted around them, showing the complex interplay between biological and technological systems that made Kithaeron armor so effective and so temperamental. "Well, there's your problem." Jace pointed to a cluster of red warning indicators. "Someone introduced a neural feedback loop into your suit's personality matrix. It's essentially arguing with itself about whether you're authorized to wear it." Personality matrix. Kithaeron armor develops rudimentary AI consciousness over time. Yours has been convinced that you're an imposter. He moved to a control panel, fingers dancing across quantum switches. "The good news is I can fix it. The bad news is I'll need to recalibrate every single neural interface point while you're wearing it. How long will this take? About 2 hours if everything goes smoothly. 4 if your armor decides to be particularly dramatic about it. Lyralay's helmet retracted with a soft pneumatic hiss, revealing features that were undeniably striking. High cheekbones, eyes the color of deep space, and those distinctive pointed ears that seemed to catch and focus sound like natural antennae. Then we had better begin. Tomorrow's vote cannot wait. Jace activated his neural interface tools, specialized instruments designed to work with the biomechanical connection points that dotted Kithaeron armor. As he began the delicate work of recalibrating the suit's recognition protocols, he found himself having to lean close, his hands moving with practiced precision across interface nodes located at her temples, neck, and wrists. The work required intense concentration. Each neural connection point had to be individually adjusted, the quantum signatures carefully aligned with Lyralay's biological patterns. Jace's instruments hummed softly as they interfaced with the alien technology, reading brainwave patterns and translating them into the mathematical language the armor understood. "You know," he said, trying to lighten the obvious tension as his tools worked near her neck, "in all my years fixing things, I've never had a suit this determined to reject its owner. What did you do to offend it?" "I suggested it might benefit from a less aggressive color scheme." Jace paused in his work. "You insulted your armor's fashion sense. The ceremonial gold clashes terribly with my complexion." "Well, there's your problem. Never critique an AI's aesthetic choices. They're surprisingly vain." His instruments beeped softly as another connection came online. "How does that feel?" "Better. The rejection protocols seem to be calming." As Jace continued his work, moving to the interface points along her arms and torso, he noticed something unexpected. The armor wasn't just accepting the recalibration. It was responding with what could only be described as enthusiasm. Bioluminescent strips along the suit's surface began to pulse in complex patterns he'd never seen before. "Is it supposed to do that?" He gestured to the light display. Lyralay glanced down, then back at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That's unusual." "Unusual how?" "Like, that's never happened before, unusual, or we should probably evacuate the workshop, unusual." "The former, I hope." Jace's instruments indicated optimal integration across all neural pathways. The armor systems had not only stopped fighting Lyralay's presence, but seemed to have developed what his diagnostics could only describe as deep compatibility. Every quantum signature aligned perfectly, every biomechanical interface operating at peak efficiency. "There." He stepped back, deactivating his tools. "Your armor now thinks you're the best thing since quantum computing. It should give you full functionality, and then some." Lyralay flexed her arms, testing the suit's responsiveness. The armor moved like a second skin, every gesture fluid and natural. "Remarkable. I haven't felt integration this smooth since the suit was first crafted." "Happy to help. Though I have to ask, what exactly happens tomorrow that requires diplomatic armor to be in perfect working order?" "The final vote on refugee corridor access. Some parties would prefer those corridors remain closed." Her expression hardened slightly, hence the sabotage. "Well, at least now your armor won't abandon you mid-negotiation." As Lyralay turned to leave, she paused at the workshop door. Her smile, when it came, seemed to transform her entire face. "Thank you, Master Torin. Your work today may have prevented more than just equipment failure." "Just doing my job. Try not to let anyone else install mysterious viruses in your systems. I shall endeavor to be more careful about who touches my armor." After she left, Jace stood in his workshop, staring at the diagnostic readings still floating in the air around him. Something about the repair had felt different, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. The biointegration had gone almost too smoothly, as if the armor had been waiting for exactly the right touch to unlock its full potential. He shrugged and began powering down his equipment. Tomorrow would bring new repairs, new challenges, and probably new ways for the universe to demonstrate its sense of humor. At least tonight, he could sleep knowing he'd helped keep the peace talks on track. In the depths of the ship's quantum core, data patterns shifted and realigned in ways that would have surprised both the armorer and the ambassador. But that discovery would have to wait for morning. Jace's morning coffee tasted like recycled metal and disappointment, which was normal. What wasn't normal was his workshop door refusing to recognize his biometric signature for the third time in 5 minutes. "Come on, you temperamental piece of..." He pressed his palm against the scanner again. The red light blinked mockingly at him before switching to green, then immediately to an amber color he'd never seen before. Strange symbols flickered across the display panel, definitely not human standard, and definitely not supposed to be there. The door finally hissed open, revealing his workshop in a state of technological confusion. Every screen displayed a mixture of human and Kithaeron text. Quantum processors hummed in harmonics that made his teeth ache, and his coffee maker was somehow brewing tea. Earl Grey, by the smell of it. "Okay, universe," Jace muttered, setting down his mug. "What fresh comedy have you prepared for me today?" His primary workstation greeted him with a cheerful chime, and a display he absolutely should not have been able to access. Refugee logistics databases scrolled past, detailing ship movements, supply routes, and resource allocations across 3-star systems. Classifications levels that should have required admiral-level clearance flickered past like a casual news feed. This is either the best practical joke in naval history, or someone's about to have a very bad day. His comm unit buzzed. Not his workshop line, his personal emergency frequency that exactly 3 people in the galaxy knew about. "Torin, Master Torin." The voice was Ambassador Voss, but she sounded distinctly less composed than she had yesterday. "I believe we may have a problem. Let me guess. Your morning routine now includes unauthorized access to classified military databases." A pause. "How did you know?" "Lucky guess. Also, my coffee maker has apparently decided I need more antioxidants in my diet. This is not a laughing matter. My aide Zenth has been pacing my quarters for an hour, muttering about cultural catastrophes and diplomatic impossibilities. He keeps waving ceremonial documents at me." Jace pulled up his workshop security logs, watching as his access permissions rewrote themselves in real time. Define cultural catastrophe for those of us who didn't attend Xenodiplomatic Academy. "It appears that when you repaired my armor yesterday, certain protocols were activated." "What kind of protocols?" Another pause, longer this time. "The kind that involve ancient Kithaeron bonding rituals and extremely specific consent procedures." Jace nearly dropped his mug. "I'm sorry, what now?" "My armor's oath sensors recorded our interaction as a formal consort binding invitation and acceptance ceremony." "But I was just fixing your..." The implications hit him like a quantum torpedo. Oh, that's bad." "Indeed, according to Kithaeron law, we are now technically, how do you say, engaged?" Jace stared at his screens, watching classified data stream past while trying to process this information. "So when you said 'don't stop' yesterday, I meant the armor repair." The oath sensors interpreted it as ritual consent to a lifelong partnership bond. "And when I said I'd take good care of you, recorded as formal acceptance of consort responsibilities." "This is insane." "This is Tuesday on a diplomatic flagship, apparently." His workshop door chimed and Chief Mendez's voice crackled through the comm. "Torin, get up here, now. Define now, in terms of how much trouble I'm currently in." "The kind where Admiral Reese wants to know why your biometric signature is appearing in systems you're not supposed to know exist." Jace groaned. "I'll be right there, Ambassador, we need to talk." "Agreed, but not over open channels. Meet me in Maintenance Junction C7 in 1 hour. The one near the waste reclamation units." Romance is not dead, Master Torin. 40 minutes later, Jace found himself in Admiral Reese's office, surrounded by enough security screens and cosmic coincidence. Admiral Reese's expression could have flash-frozen hydrogen. One more time with feeling. Jace sighed. I repaired Ambassador Voss's armor yesterday. Apparently, something in the biointegration process created a connection between our biometric profiles. I'm as surprised as you are. Surprised doesn't begin to cover it. She activated a holographic display showing system access logs. Your authorization codes have been appearing in databases you shouldn't even know exist. Either you're the galaxy's most incompetent spy, or something very strange happened in your workshop. I vote for strange. Spy work requires way too much paperwork. This isn't funny, Torin. Half the hardliners in both fleets think this is either a Kitharian infiltration attempt or evidence that their ambassador has been compromised. Before Jace could respond, his personal comm buzzed with an emergency signal. Admiral Reese gestured for him to answer. Torin. Jace, Ambassador Voss sounded breathless. We have a bigger problem than cultural protocols. Bigger than accidental alien marriage. I've been reviewing the data your access permissions unlocked. Someone has been manipulating refugee ship routes, deliberately sending them into hostile sectors. Admiral Reese leaned forward. Put her on speaker. Admiral, the evidence suggests coordination between hardline factions on both sides. They're profiteering from the war while publicly supporting these peace talks. Proof. Financial transfers, communication logs, supply contracts, all accessible through the paired biometric locks that were created yesterday. But Admiral, there's more. They know about the system breach. Warpriest Valdris is demanding I be returned to the Kitharian fleet for purification. And your own security chief has recommended Jace be detained for interrogation. Admiral Reese's jaw tightened. How long do we have? Perhaps 6 hours before they move against us. But Admiral, if they separate us, the evidence becomes inaccessible. The paired locks require both biometric signatures to maintain system access. Jace felt the universe's sense of humor reaching new heights of cosmic irony. So we accidentally got married by alien technology, uncovered a conspiracy, and now we have to stay together to prevent a war. That's a surprisingly accurate summary, Lyrale's voice replied. Admiral Reese stood, her decision crystallizing. Torin, you're confined to quarters until further notice. Ambassador, I recommend you remain in the diplomatic section. Admiral, Jace said carefully, separating us might be exactly what the conspirators want. And keeping you together might be exactly what they're counting on. After being escorted back to his quarters, Jace sat on his bunk, staring at the data stream still flowing across his personal terminal. Somewhere in the vast digital ocean of information, evidence of corruption and conspiracy waited to be properly documented and exposed. But accessing it required cooperation with someone he'd met exactly once, who was now technically his fiancée according to ancient alien law. His door chimed softly, and a maintenance panel slid open. Ambassador Voss emerged from what had to be the least dignified entrance in diplomatic history, brushing dust from her uniform. Service tunnels, she explained. Zenth insisted I learned the ship's hidden passages during our first week aboard. Practical, also probably illegal. Everything we're doing is probably illegal at this point. She activated a small device that filled the room with gentle white noise. Privacy screen. We have perhaps 30 minutes before they realize I'm not in my quarters. So what's the plan? We download everything we can access, encode it into multiple data packages, and distribute them to trusted contacts on both sides before our enemies can silence us. And then... Lyrale's smile was sharp with determination. Then we decide whether an accidental engagement is worth saving the galaxy. When you put it like that, it sounds almost romantic. Romance will have to wait. Right now, we have a conspiracy to unravel, and approximately 6 hours to do it. Jace activated his workstation, watching as classified files bloomed across multiple screens. Well, at least the universe has a sense of timing. Indeed. Now, shall we save civilization before breakfast or after? Definitely before. I'm told the cafeteria is serving mystery meat today. As they began downloading terabytes of evidence, neither noticed the subtle changes in their biometric readings, heart rates synchronizing, neural patterns aligning in ways that suggested their accidental bond was becoming something deeper than either had expected. 17 hours until the peace vote, and Jace's quarters had transformed into what could charitably be called a war room, or uncharitably called a testament to caffeinated desperation. Holographic displays floated at every conceivable angle, streaming financial records, communication logs, and supply manifests that painted a picture darker than the void between stars. Tell me again why weapons manufacturers from both species would collaborate to keep a war going, Jace asked, rubbing his eyes. The data was making him question everything he thought he knew about interstellar politics. Lyreley gestured to a cluster of financial transfers floating near the ceiling. Because peace is terrible for business when your business is selling instruments of death. Look at these numbers. Kitharan bioweapon exports increased 40% since the ceasefire began. And human kinetic ordnance sales are up 60%. Jace highlighted a series of transactions. They're not just profiting from the war, they're actively sabotaging peace to keep the orders coming. The refugee camps are the worst part. Lyreley's voice carried a cold fury that made Jace glad she was on his side. They've been deliberately routing refugee ships into hostile zones, then selling protection services to both the refugees and the pirates attacking them. Jace searched for words strong enough. That's comic book villain levels of evil. Unfortunately, comic book villains rarely have quarterly profit reports and board meetings. A soft chime from Jace's personal comm interrupted their research. He glanced at the display and groaned. Zenth wants to meet with us. He says it's about cultural obligations and temporal constraints. Translation: he's figured out exactly how deep a diplomatic hole we've fallen into. 20 minutes later, they sat in what had to be the most awkward cultural briefing in galactic history. Zenth, Lyreley's diplomatic aide, had somehow managed to find a maintenance closet large enough for 3 people and a portable holographic projector. His usual composed demeanor had been replaced by the frazzled energy of someone trying to explain quantum physics to a particularly stubborn houseplant. Ambassador, the situation has moved beyond diplomatically awkward into the realm of civilizationally significant. Zenth began, activating displays that showed ancient Kitharan legal texts. The consort bond protocols that were accidentally triggered cannot be simply ignored. Define cannot, Jace said, in the sense that ignoring them would be roughly equivalent to declaring war on 12 centuries of Kitharan cultural tradition. The bad kind of cannot. Lyreley leaned forward. What are our options? 2, both equally problematic. Zenth highlighted sections of legal text that seemed to writhe on the screen. Option 1. You complete the consort bond through public ceremony, thereby legitimizing the accidental connection and maintaining your combined system access. And option 2. You formally reject the bond through public denial ceremony, which would sever the biometric connection and destroy your access to the evidence. Jace felt the universe's sense of humor reaching new heights. So we either get married in front of both fleets, or we lose the only proof that can prevent a war. That is a remarkably concise summary of an extraordinarily complex legal situation. How long do we have to decide? The bond must be either completed or rejected before the next dawn cycle, or it will be considered abandoned, which carries the same penalties as formal rejection, but with additional charges of cultural disrespect. Lyreley rubbed her temples. And if we complete the ceremony? Then you would be legally bonded under Kithaeron law, with all attendant rights and responsibilities. The biometric connection would become permanent, and your combined access permissions would be legally protected. Rights and responsibilities such as Zenth consulted his data pad with the air of someone reading a particularly onerous contract. Shared property, mutual obligation for each other's debts, joint responsibility for any children. Children. Jace nearly choked. Cross-species reproduction is theoretically possible with modern medical intervention, though the paperwork is allegedly nightmarish. Let's table the family planning discussion, Lyrale said quickly. What about the political implications? Zenth's expression became even more troubled. A human Kithaeron consort bond would be unprecedented. It would either be hailed as a triumph of interspecies cooperation or denounced as a betrayal of species purity, depending on one's political leanings. Jace's comm buzzed with an emergency signal. Admiral Reese's voice cut through the closet's cramped atmosphere like a plasma cutter through butter. Torin, we have a situation. Report to Security Bay 7 immediately. What kind of situation? The kind where War Priest Valdris has formally demanded Ambassador Voss be transferred to Kithaeron custody for purification rituals. And my own security chief is recommending you be detained as a potential security risk. Lyrale and Jace exchanged glances. Admiral, Lyrale said, might I suggest that separating us at this juncture would be strategically inadvisable, yes. Which is why you're both coming to Security Bay 7. We're having a little chat with everyone involved. The Security Bay buzzed with enough tension to power a small starship. Admiral Reese stood at the center, flanked by human security officers whose expressions suggested they'd rather be anywhere else. Across from them, War Priest Valdris waited with the patient stillness of a predator, his ceremonial robes somehow making the sterile military environment feel ancient and dangerous. Now then, Admiral Reese began, let's discuss why my armorer and your ambassador have apparently achieved unprecedented access to classified systems from both our fleets. War Priest Valdris stepped forward, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the metal walls. The female has participated in sacred rituals with an alien male. She has compromised her spiritual purity, and by extension, her diplomatic authority. With respect, Jace said, I was fixing her armor. If that counts as a sacred ritual, your people really need hobbies. The oath censors do not lie, human. Your words and actions were recorded as formal consent to consort binding. My actions were recorded as quality customer service. Admiral Reese held up a hand. Regardless of what happened, the fact remains that classified information is now accessible through an unprecedented biometric pairing. We need to understand the security implications. Admiral, Lyrale said carefully, what if the security breach was not an accident but an opportunity? Explain. The evidence we've accessed reveals systematic corruption by hardline factions on both sides. They're profiteering from the war while publicly supporting these peace talks. War Priest Valdris's expression shifted subtly. What evidence? Financial records showing collaboration between human and Kithaeron weapons manufacturers. Communication logs proving they've been sabotaging refugee ships. Supply contracts that demonstrate they're selling to both sides while claiming neutral status. Proof, Admiral Reese demanded. Jace activated his data pad, streaming evidence onto the Security Bay's main display. Financial transfers cascaded across the screen, showing complex networks of corruption that span both fleets. Communication intercepts revealed plans to sabotage tomorrow's peace vote through manufactured crises and false flag operations. War Priest Valdris studied the data with growing alarm. These transactions, some involve my own subordinates, and some involve mine, Admiral Reese admitted grimly. This changes things considerably. It changes nothing, a new voice declared. Security Chief Morrison entered the bay with the swagger of someone who believed he held all the cards. This alleged evidence could easily be fabricated. More likely, we're looking at an elaborate Kitharian intelligence operation using seduction and cultural manipulation to gain access to human systems. Chief Morrison, Admiral Reese said slowly, your objection is noted. My objection is that we're trusting classified intelligence to a man who's been compromised by alien influence and a diplomat who's violated her own cultural protocols. Jace felt something click into place. Morrison, you wouldn't happen to have any financial investments in Terran defense contractors, would you? Morrison's face flushed. That's irrelevant. It's a yes or no question. My personal investments are none of your concern. Lyreley consulted her data pad. According to the financial records we accessed, TDC has been one of the primary beneficiaries of extended conflict. Their stock prices have tripled since the war began. And Jace added, checking his own display, Chief Morrison has been receiving regular payments from TDC subsidiaries for security consulting. Admiral Reese's expression could have frozen plasma. Chief Morrison, you're relieved of duty pending investigation. You can't do this based on fabricated evidence from compromised sources. I can and I am. Security, escort the chief to detention. As Morrison was led away, still protesting his innocence, War Priest Valdris approached the central display. If this evidence is accurate, then both our peoples have been betrayed by those sworn to protect them. The question is, Admiral Reese said, what do we do about it? Jace looked at Lyreley, seeing his own determination reflected in her expression. We expose them, all of them, before tomorrow's vote. And how exactly do we do that, while both fleets want to separate you two? Lyreley's smile was sharp as a plasma blade. We give them what they want. A public ceremony that legitimizes our bond and makes our evidence legally admissible under both human and Kitharian law. You're talking about completing this consort binding. I'm talking about saving the peace talks and preventing a war. If getting married accomplishes that, then I've had worse reasons for major life decisions. Jace grinned despite the chaos surrounding them. When you put it like that, how can I refuse? War Priest Valdris studied them both for a long moment. If you are serious about this path, the ceremony must be conducted before dawn. And it must be public enough to satisfy cultural requirements while secure enough to prevent sabotage. I have an idea about that, Admiral Reese said slowly. But first, we need to ensure this evidence is distributed widely enough that eliminating you two won't bury it. Already in progress, Lyreley replied. Zenth has been encoding data packages for transmission to trusted contacts throughout both fleets. Then we have work to do, and very little time to do it. As the group began planning what had to be the galaxy's most strategically motivated wedding, Jace couldn't help but marvel at how his life had become a cosmic joke with galactic implications. At least the universe had good timing. Dawn approached the meridian's edge like a cosmic spotlight seeking the galaxy's most unlikely wedding ceremony. Jace stood in the main hangar bay, wearing his dress uniform and wondering how his life had become a diplomatic incident with matching rings. You know, he said to Zenth, who was frantically arranging ceremonial equipment, when I woke up 3 days ago, prevent galactic war through emergency alien marriage wasn't on my to-do list. Few people plan for such contingencies, Zenth replied, adjusting a holographic altar that projected traditional Kitharian symbols. Though I suspect your species would benefit from more comprehensive life planning. The hangar had been transformed into something between a wedding venue and a military tribunal. Representatives from both fleets filled makeshift seating areas, while security screens displayed the evidence Jace and Lyreley had uncovered. Financial ready to save civilization, she asked. Just another Tuesday, Jace replied. Though I have to ask, are we actually getting married or just preventing a war? Why not both? War Priest Valdris stepped forward, his ceremonial robes flowing like liquid shadow. The preparations are complete. However, I must ask, are you both certain of this path? Consort bonds cannot be easily dissolved. Easier than rebuilding civilization after an unnecessary war, Lyreley replied. Fair point. The ceremony began with Valdris speaking in harmonics that made the hangar's metal framework resonate like a vast musical instrument. Jace caught perhaps half the words, but the meaning was clear enough. Ancient promises about partnership, protection, and shared destiny that had somehow become the key to galactic peace. Do you, Lyreley Voss of the Kithaeron Coalition, accept this bond willingly and with full understanding of its implications? I do. And do you, Jace Tauren of the Human Federation, accept this bond willingly and with full understanding of its implications? Jace glanced at the assembled crowd, then at the evidence still streaming across security screens, then at Lyreley's face. 3 days ago, he'd been a simple armorer fixing suits and making jokes about the universe's sense of humor. Now he was about to marry an alien diplomat to prevent a war and expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of both governments. I do. The biometric scanners built into the ceremonial altar flared to life, reading their combined biological signatures and encoding them into the ship's permanent records. Legal documents appeared on dozens of screens throughout the hangar as their bond was formally recognized by both human and Kithaeron law. Then, by the authority vested in me by ancient tradition and current necessity, Valdris declared, I pronounce you bonded in partnership, protection, and purpose. The hangar erupted in applause that seemed equal parts celebration and relief. But even as they shared what had to be the galaxy's most politically motivated kiss, Jace's comm unit chimed with an emergency signal. Tauren here. Jace, we have a problem. Admiral Reese's voice carried urgent concern. Long-range sensors are detecting unregistered ships approaching from 3 vectors. Configuration suggests mercenary vessels. Lyreley activated her own comm. How many? 15 ships, military grade. They're broadcasting corporate IDs for Blackstone Security Solutions. Never heard of them, Jace said. Because they were incorporated yesterday, Lyreley replied, consulting her data pad. Funded by emergency transfers from the same accounts we exposed in the conspiracy. War Priest Valdris approached them. A final desperate attempt to restart hostilities. Looks like it. They probably figure if they can cause enough chaos, the peace talks will collapse and their war profits can continue. Admiral Reese's voice crackled through the comm again. Estimated time to weapons range, 47 minutes. Both fleets are powering up defensive systems, but if shooting starts here, the peace talks are over. Jace felt the universe preparing another cosmic punchline. Please tell me our newfound access to classified systems includes something useful for dealing with mercenary fleets. Lyreley's smile was sharp enough to cut through hull plating. Actually, it does. The refugee coordination protocols we accessed include emergency codes for civilian protection networks throughout this sector. Civilian protection networks. Automated defense platforms, originally installed to protect refugee camps from pirates. They've been dormant since the ceasefire began. Jace understood immediately. But if someone with proper authorization were to reactivate them, 15 mercenary ships would find themselves facing a network of defensive platforms they didn't know existed. Can we do it from here? With our combined access permissions and the legal authority our bond provides, yes. They worked with the focused intensity of people who discovered that preventing galactic war was becoming a habit. Lyreley's fingers danced across control interfaces while Jace managed the technical integration, their biometric signatures unlocking systems that had been dormant for months. Defense network coming online, Lyreley reported. Platforms are requesting target confirmation. Blackstone ships are entering the outer perimeter, Admiral Reese announced over the general comm. All vessels prepare for. Her words were cut off by a brilliant flash of light visible through the hangar's viewports. The automated defense platforms had engaged, surrounding the mercenary fleet with a coordinated display of overwhelming firepower that left no doubt about the outcome. Blackstone vessels are standing down, came the report. They're requesting permission to withdraw. Permission granted, Admiral Reese replied. And let them know that attacking a diplomatic vessel during peace negotiations violates about 17 different interstellar treaties. Jace slumped against the ceremonial altar, exhaustion finally catching up with him. Is it over? The immediate crisis, yes, Lyreley said, but the peace vote still happens in 6 hours. Think it'll pass? War Priest Valdris approached them, his expression thoughtful. With the corruption exposed and the war profiteers facing justice, the vote will likely be unanimous. What about the refugee corridors? Already being reopened. The first ship should reach safe harbor within days. Jace looked around the hangar, now filled with beings from 2 species who had been at war for years, but were working together with the efficiency of old partners. You know, when I took this job, I thought I'd be fixing armor and staying out of politics. How do you feel about the career change? Lyreley asked. Well, the hours are terrible, the stress is astronomical, and my wife is technically an alien diplomat who could probably kill me 12 different ways. But I helped prevent a war, exposed galactic-level corruption, and married someone who appreciates both my technical skills and my sense of humor. There are worse ways to spend a week. Admiral Reese joined them, her official demeanor softened by what might actually have been a smile. The Admiralty has decided to offer you a promotion, Torin. How does Special Liaison for Cross-Species Technical Integration sound? Like a job title that was invented 5 minutes ago. It was, but it comes with a significant pay increase and authorization to work on the most advanced technology from both fleets. Jace looked at Lyreley, who nodded encouragingly. Will I get to keep my workshop? You'll get a bigger workshop. And my coffee maker. We'll requisition you the best coffee maker in the fleet. Then I accept. 6 months later, Jace stood in his new workshop, 3 times the size of his old one, and equipped with the most advanced technology both species could provide. Through his viewport, he could see the refugee ships that now moved safely through the corridors their evidence had helped reopen. Lyreley entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and a data pad filled with the day's repair requests. Busy schedule today, she said, handing him the coffee. Ambassador Chen's environmental suit needs recalibration. The Kitharan trade delegation requires armor upgrades, and apparently someone's managed to crash the AI personality matrix in a ceremonial exosuit. That sounds like Tuesday. Actually, it's Friday. Close enough. She sat on his workbench, a gesture that would have been scandalous 6 months ago but now felt natural. Any regrets about how things turned out? Jace considered the question while watching a human cargo ship dock alongside a Kitharan passenger vessel, their crews working together with practiced efficiency. I went from being a simple armorer to being married to an alien diplomat and preventing galactic war. If I'm going to have my life turned upside down by cosmic coincidence, at least it was cosmic coincidence with good timing. And excellent company. That too. His comm unit chimed with another repair request, and Jace grinned as he read the message. Ambassador Krell's ceremonial armor is malfunctioning. Biointegration systems are rejecting his neural patterns. Sabotage. Probably just someone who insulted their suit's color scheme again. Should we warn him about the oath sensors? Where would be the fun in that? As they prepared for another day of keeping the peace through superior customer service, Jace reflected that the universe's sense of humor had turned out to be more profound than he'd ever imagined. Sometimes the most important moments came disguised as routine maintenance, and sometimes saving civilization was just a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right tools and the right partner. Outside his workshop, the galaxy continued its ancient dance of politics and diplomacy, trade and conflict, hope and fear. But in his small corner of the vast cosmos, surrounded by the tools of his trade and the woman who'd accidentally become his wife and willing partner in all things, Jace had found something he'd never expected, a purpose that fit him as perfectly